Oh, really?
Vampire! We take your candy!
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula. And I bid you welcome, Mr. Hunt, to my house. Come in.
Our first award goes to the vampire for most blood drained in a single evening.
The strength of the vampire is that people will not believe in him.
Okay, it's been a week. Goes fast, right? Goes really fast. So here's what I have done. Juliet is locked upstairs. I heated up the house and then turned off or turned down the thermostat so the heater should not turn on. I've already checked the mic. I've already loaded the opening. My vampire tea is brewed. The battery is brand new. So we should be able to get through this in one take. What are the odds, right? Okay, but that's the goal. We're going to try and do this in one take. So why don't we just jump right into it? What do you think about that? Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I am your host, Lena Nazari, coming to you from a very cold Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, although there is promise of some warmer weather right around the corner, but I'll believe it when I see it. I have brewed myself some vampire tea. So for those of you who have followed me on social media will see that Vampire Tea Company sent me a box full of teas. And let me tell you, it could not have shown up on a better day because that evening was rotten. So when the box showed up, I can't even describe how full this unbeating heart was. Tonight I am doing, and this was actually by the encouragement of some friends of mine at the Vampire Cafe, we are doing a Wolf's Bane blend. So if you follow me on social media, you will see I've already tried it because I couldn't wait. And it is quickly becoming one of my favorites. Now, Stavros, who is the owner of Vampire Tea, who crafts these wonderful, delicious blends, said something really interesting. He said, you know, relaxation is not a competition. And boy, isn't that true? Or enjoyment is not a competition. Man, is that, I gotta write that down. So you're right, I have a bunch of different favorites, but this is up there. And Wolf's Bane blend, this is not caffeinated. And it is orange cream and vanilla mixed into this tea, high in antioxidants and low in caffeine. So it's delish. So I have it here in my Lost Boys mug, and I'm very excited. By now, the cover of Fatal Curse is out on social media. You can share it. You can do whatever you want. It's not a secret anymore. The full cover, which means the front and then the back with the description, has been approved. So my publisher is currently working on the interior. When I get that back, I will check it, make sure there's nothing that needs to be edited. And then when the final manuscript is approved, it's ready for sale. So Fanged family, street team, listeners, watchers, I think we're going to have the book out for May, which is very exciting for me. The first one came out May of 2021, the second one May of 2022, so May of 2023. So even though I got a later start this time around, it looks like we're going to get it out just in time. And if it is ready for print by the end of April, I think I might have it in Philadelphia the first weekend of June. Ooh, claws crossed. I'm so excited. We'll see. All right, I think that's enough of the behind the scenes talk. I am so excited to talk about this movie for a myriad of reasons, but If you haven't seen it, massive spoiler alerts on this podcast. I ruin everything. Who hooks up with who breaks up with who kills who, how they die, all that stuff. We're going to do a quick summary. If you've never seen Vampire's Kiss with Nicolas Cage, I recommend that you pause the podcast and go watch it. I think that it is something that any vampire fan has to watch. And with Renfield coming up, you know I love Nic Cage, and now he's going to play Dracula, which I'm so excited about. Oh, if you don't already know, I'm going to be watching Renfield opening night, and then I'm going to do a bonus episode for Renfield. So I'm not going to shift anything around. I'm not going to replace anything. I'm just going to do a bonus episode, so watch out for that. But let's do a summary of Vampire's Kiss, and then we're going to get into it. Peter Lowe is a driven literary agent and an example of a stereotypical narcissist, a greedy yuppie of the 1980s. He works all day and club hops all night with little in his life but alcohol, cocaine, one-night stands with numerous women, and the pursuit of money and supposed prestige. However, he is slowly going insane and sees a therapist frequently. During these sessions, his declining mental health. I want to say something right here. This summary was written by somebody. It was on Wikipedia. Please don't be offended if I say something that is no longer appropriate. YouTube, please don't cancel me. I know that we don't necessarily call people insane or crazy anymore, so please bear with me. This is just a sign of the times. This is the way that people spoke in the 80s and 90s. We were not politically correct or woke or aware or anything. During these sessions, his declining mental health becomes clear through a series of increasingly bizarre rants, which eventually begin to scare the psychiatrist. After taking home a girl named Jackie from a club, a bat flies in through his window, scaring them both. At his next session, he mentions to his therapist that the struggle with the bat aroused him. While visiting an art museum with Jackie the next day, he ditches her, and she later leaves an angry message on his phone. Lowe meets Rachel at a nightclub and seemingly takes her home. As they make love, she pins him down, exposing vampire fangs, and bites him on the neck. The following morning, Lowe is seen with an uninjured neck, serving coffee and making conversation with a non-existent Rachel, casting doubt on the reality of the previous night's events. Lowe cuts his neck shaving and applies a bandage to the spot, thereafter believing it to be the location of his vampire bite. He soon believes that he is turning into a vampire, fails to see his reflection in mirrors, and wears dark sunglasses indoors. When his fangs fail to develop, he purchases a pair of cheap plastic novelty fangs. All the while, he has delusions of Rachel visiting him nightly to feed on his blood. Shortly after, Lowe experiences severe mood swings and calls Jackie back apologetically, asking to meet her at a bar. He's about to leave when a jealous Rachel appears and beckons him back inside. A dejected Jackie eventually leaves the bar and leaves an angry note on his door asking him to leave her alone. Lowe constantly torments a secretary working at his office named Alva, typically by forcing her to search through an enormous paper file for a contract. When she fails to find the contract, he at first browbeats and humiliates her, then visits her at home and tricks her into returning to work, and finally attacks and attempts to bite her at the workplace after hours. She pulls out a gun and Lowe begs her to shoot him. Since it's only loaded with blanks, she fires at the floor to scare him. He eventually overpowers her, ripping her shirt open, pinning her to the floor as he attempts to bite her neck, then hallucinates that she is Rachel. Afterwards, overcome by despair, he takes the gun and fires it into his mouth, but is unharmed, attributing it to his supposed transformation. Thinking he is a vampire, Lowe goes out to a club wearing his novelty fangs and moves around erratically like the character Orlok from the film Nosferatu, with a crazed look in his eyes. He begins to seduce a woman, but when he gets too grabby, she slaps him, making Lo even more unhinged. He overpowers her and bites her neck, having taken out the fangs and using his real teeth, leaving the woman unconscious and bloody. He hallucinates another encounter with the disdainful Rachel. Afterwards, Lo encounters the real Rachel dancing with another man on the dance floor. She appears to recognize him, but gives the impression they have not been in contact for a long time. Lo attempts to manhandle her into revealing her fangs as her date fights him off. He screams that he loves her and accuses her of being a vampire as he is dragged off out of the club by security. Alva wakes up with her shirt ripped open, possibly thinking she was R-worded, and eventually tells her brother Emilio, who is enraged and goes after Lo with Alva to seek revenge. Meanwhile, Lo is wandering the streets, disheveled in a blood-spattered business suit from the previous night, excitedly talking to himself. Standing on a corner, he hallucinates exchange with his therapist, claiming that he R-worded someone and murdered someone else. A nearby newspaper headline confirms the latter. As Lo returns to his now destroyed apartment, Alva points him out to Emilio, who pursues him inside the apartment, blocked with a tire iron. In the midst of an abusive argument with an imaginary romantic interest, supposedly a patient of his psychiatrist, Lo begins to retch again from the blood he had swallowed, then crawls under his upturned sofa on the floor as though it were a coffin. Emilio finds Lo and upturns the sofa. Lo holds a large broken piece of wood to his chest as a makeshift stake, repeating the gesture he had made earlier to strangers on the street when he asked them to kill him. Emilio pushes down the wood and it pierces Lo's chest in a gruesome manner. Emilio flees the apartment. As Lo dies, he envisions the vampiress Rachel one more time. Okay. So, if you've never seen the movie, I hope it was clear from the summary that in fact none of what's happening is real, okay? So, I want to make it sure, like, this is not like my usual review because there's no actual vampires in the story. So, I'm going to be breaking down Lo's interpretation of the vampires since it's coming from his brain. So we'll be talking about his version of a vampire and of course looking at the vampiress and that he himself is in the midst of turning. But everything we're breaking down is his interpretation or his perception of vampires in this world. Okay. Vampiric references and crossovers. Nic Cage is the lead in this movie and of course is going to be Count Dracula in the upcoming Renfield. Jennifer Beals plays the vampiress in this movie and she was also in the TV series The Hunger, not the movie, the TV series. John Michael Higgins is a colleague of Lo's in this and he is Dr. Vance in Blade Trinity. And then Nick's older brother, Mark Coppola, has a small role in this, and then he plays Brad in a movie called Dracula's Widow. A little bit of trivia. The scene where Nic Cage eats a roach, that is a real roach, and apparently he did it 3 times. Yikes. I mean, that's motivation. All right, let's break it down. Relationship to humans. The vampires are only known as vampires once they show themselves. So like most vampires, their relationship to humans is really to use them for pleasure and food. Most humans don't even know vampires exist, but in Nic Cage's mind, they're walking amongst humans. They appear human. You don't know they're a vampire until it's too late, and it's only the fangs that change when they vamp out. They're 2 sharp canines that retract when not being used. And like I said, when he believes that he's turning, but his fangs have not shown up yet, he goes and buys those plastic ones. And that is hilarious. hilarious because he's trying to talk around these fangs too. And anybody who's ever put those plastic fangs in their mouth you can't speak in them. They take over your whole mouth. Blood. The vampiress does drink Lo's blood, and Lo drinks blood when he believes he's turned. So he drinks from a pigeon and also from a woman in the club. Food. After being bitten, we actually never see Lo eat food. We only see him drinking the blood, eating the roach, and then biting into the pigeon. Sunlight. He reacts to the sunlight like it's burning him. He makes a point to stay out of it. The vampiress is never seen in the sun. She only approaches him at night. And like I said in the summary, he puts the sunglasses on now and wears them everywhere. Sleep. Lo flips a couch over and climbs underneath it like it's his coffin after he's been turned. We never see him reacting to crosses or holy water or any kind of holy item. That was not put in the movie. It would have been funny though if like somebody showed up with a cross and at work and he like reacted to that. Rules. The vampiress is brought home by Lo. So if he believes that vampires need invited in, he already invited her in. So now she can just come and go whenever she wants, which she does. As Lo descends into his delusions, he stops seeing himself in the mirror. And in the scene, we see his reflection, but he's touching the glass going, "Where did you go? Where did you go?" So his delusions actually create it so that he can no longer see his reflection because he believes that vampires do not cast a reflection. Powers. Neither the vampiress nor Lo ever show any kind of power. So because it's a delusion, his perception, he could see the vampiress do anything. He could see her fly, go invisible, anything. But that never happens. Nor does he like try and jump off a roof or anything. It's vampire tea. How are they made? So Lo is bitten by the vampiress and then the turn begins. As we never see him drink her blood, just she bites him and then leaves him alive and then the turn starts. Later he bites a woman in a club and per him, he murdered her. So he must believe that if you bite a human and don't drain them completely, they turn. But if you bite them and kill them, then they will not come back. Heartbeat or breathing. I was actually waiting throughout this whole thing to see if he was going to comment on like, oh, my heart's not beating. But that actually never happens, so we don't know. How do they die? So Lo begs to be shot, and at one point he puts the revolver into his mouth, but unbeknownst to him, it's blanks in the bullets. Blanks in the chamber. So he pulls the trigger multiple times but doesn't die. So that kind of solidifies his belief that he is the undead and he cannot be murdered. So it's unfortunate. It's interesting how it all lines up to kind of like solidify these delusions he has. However, we know people who are delusional, they don't really need anything to solidify it, but it really does kind of solidify in his mind that this is really happening. Later he carries a stake and he begs a man on the street to drive it through his heart. And then of course when Alva's brother comes in, he does actually push this piece of wood through this man's chest. So whether vampire or human, that's going to be the end of you. Is it good or are vampires good or are vampires bad? This one's complicated. So I think Lo's belief is that vampires are bad since he immediately devolves into attacking women and begging people to kill him. So he must believe he's a danger if he's begging people to kill him. So his perception must be that vampires are bad. Tropes I love and tropes I hate. We're going to kind of combine this together because this movie is a whole bunch of tropes. That's because Lo is presenting himself as a vampire by falling into a lot of these classic beliefs, these tropes. It's a little bit confusing, but there's some good stuff in here. So for example, he moves through the dance club like Nosferatu, like Count Orlok. His eyes are very wide in his claws and he's moving like Count Orlok. You have to watch it. It's fantastic. The tropes are kind of confused at some point in time, even inside his brain. So for example, he eats the roach and he eats the bird, which I have to assume the roach is an homage to Renfield, but Renfield's actually a human servant, not a vampire. So at no point in time does Dracula eat a roach. So even in his own delusions, they're kind of mixed up, which actually makes sense. He sleeps in a coffin. He starts wearing sunglasses to protect his eyes from the sun. He starts to avoid daylight. He can't be seen in the mirror. He has to drink blood, and he only dies from a stake to the heart. So like I said, the whole movie is just a whole bunch of tropes. There's really nothing in there. I don't hate anything that they did, because this is not an interpretation of vampires. This is an interpretation of a descent into madness. So there's nothing about this that I thought was not appropriate, because the whole thing was meant to show you how far he's detached from reality. All right, we are still going to do ratings. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do this or not, but I think we're going to go ahead and do it. So we are rating Lowe's perception of vampires. How scary or evil are vampires in his mind? Per Lowe's idea of vampires, the vampiress is controlling and extremely territorial. She appears to stop him from being with anyone but her. She states that she is a jealous mistress and he can only love her. She appears and disappears without a sound, making her very dangerous. However, she is bound by the sun. Lowe has no problem devolving straight into someone who kills and attacks, and he does not seem to have any regret for this, even when he confesses it. I think he just feels like, I have to do this. So these versions of vampires, if they were real, would sort of be middle of the road. So we're going to give them 5 out of 10 stakes to the heart for scariness and evil. They're pretty classic, standard, middle of the road vampires when it comes to how big of a problem would they be for humans. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of Vampire's Kiss? The vampiress is presented as being very sexy, and she does kind of have this alluring power over Lowe, almost like he can't control himself. Once he's turned, however, he is far from sexy or alluring. The way he moves through the club is more likely done to scare people away than to draw them in. So I'm going to split this. The vampiress gets a 6 out of 10 unks for sexiness and allure, but Lowe gets 0. He doesn't even get the honorary vampire point because he's not a vampire. So sorry, Nick. If you ever listen to this or watch this, it's not you personally, okay? It's just your interpretation of this character, so please don't be mad at me. My thoughts. I have wanted to do this movie since I started this podcast. You know, it's tough because when I started this podcast, I had this giant list of movies, you know, but there's only so much time in the night. So I'm having to slowly get these things done, and then stuff will pop up here and there that I'll add to the list. So this one has been on the list for quite some time, and I was very excited to go back and rewatch it. So it has taken me a few watches of this movie. I'm not going to be one of those people who pretends like I've been super smart from day one and I always got it. Really, over the last 30 years, it's taken a few watches to like truly understand. The first time I saw it, I was definitely too young to have been watching it, and I just thought he was actually a vampire. The next few times I watched it, it was mostly for Nick's performance. It was very comedic, it's very over the top, it's just sort of like a fun watch, something you can have in the background. A lot of very famous scenes have come from this movie. Anybody who's seen Nick in a suit, in an office space looking, going A, B, C, D, E, that's this movie, that's from this movie. And then of course him running down the street going, I'm a vampire, I'm a vampire, that is from this movie. So famous scenes from here. Now that I rewatch it, it's just sad. It just was sad. It's clear from the way he puts on what he thinks is a high society accent, and harasses his staff, that he's desperate to feel worthy, respected, better than everybody else. He tells his therapist that he sleeps with women and sends them packing. The first monologue he has with his therapist, he's like, what? She just knew to go. So he just has no connection to anyone at all. He obviously doesn't know how to love or care. Something in him is just not right. And then when the bat attacks him the first time, it's like the first time he ever has any kind of excitement in his life. It's the first time he's not having to force it, and that's the moment that he cracks. The vampiress is the only person he's ever loved, and she is not real. So it's almost like it's a way to love but still be safe because it's not a real person. I think that he feels dead inside, like he's not human, and that's why he imagines turning into a vampire. So if you think about it, vampires appear human, but they're not. They walk amongst us, but they can't truly connect with other humans, and I think that's how he feels. I also think this is his way of committing an unaliving without having to actually do it. Like, I'm a vampire, so I must die to protect others. It's actually a noble feat. It's heroic what I'm trying to do, that kind of thing. It's interesting that in his delusion, the vampiress is possessive and unkind to him. It's almost like he treated women like crap, so now she's treating him exactly the same way, like a possession. You know, it's like karma. You've treated women like possessions, and now the vampiress is treating you like a possession. I have to say, I don't know if I'm ever going to watch this one again now that I truly understand it. I mean, there's so much sadness in the world. There's so many people who struggle and feel like they're not loved, or feel like they're not worthy, or feel like they can't connect. And there's enough of that in the world. I don't think I need to watch it anymore. There's plenty of things to watch. I think I will just stick with my sexy vampires. So we did it. That is Vampire's Kiss with Nic Cage. Yeah, I don't... It's a different movie to me now. You know, it used to be like this like funny over the top movie, and now it's not anymore. Now it's just really sad. So yeah, guys, I don't know that I'm ever gonna watch this one again, but it is a classic. You need to watch it. You'll recognize a few of the scenes for sure because they're absolutely iconic at this point. I'm so excited to now go watch him be an actual vampire. That's a lot of fun. Next week, I will be doing Corbin Nash. So remember how I said I had this list of stuff when I first started the podcast, but other things pop up? This is one of those. It popped up. I don't remember how I stumbled across it, but it was on Amazon Prime, so I just slapped it in the rotation. So I will be reviewing Corbin Nash. You can see that on Amazon Prime. And I promise I will continue to update you on the book and where it's at. And the second it is available, or I know what the release date is, I will be letting my street team and the Fanged family know first, and then I will be posting all over social media and of course on talking about it here. I just got done recording a bunch of TikToks. So if you're not following me on TikTok, go check those out. I just recorded a whole bunch. I found some really interesting stuff to talk about, so I think you guys will get a kick out of that. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to enjoy my Wolf's Bane blend. I almost said Wolf's Bang. Well, that's a whole different thing. Wolf's Bane blend. And I'm going to go ahead and start editing this. But you know I love you guys. I hope I'm going to get to see some of you in Philadelphia in June, or in Pittsburgh in August. And there's another announcement coming up pretty soon for an appearance. But in the meantime, I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening. Not too bad. I stumbled over a few words, but you know what? I'm not going to edit it out of the podcast. It really wasn't that bad. So we're just going to go ahead and start editing, start editing so that I can get this out to you on time. It's looking like when I record this, Byzantium dropped today. So I'm recording this now to have it ready for next weekend, because next weekend is supposed to be beautiful. So I would like to be able to get outside. So I'm gonna start working on editing. I'm gonna finish my vampire tea, and then I am going to probably go watch Corbin Nash. Sounds like a plan. All right. I love you, YouTube. Thank you once again for joining me. I love that you come watch me do this. Comment down below if there's something you'd like to see me change. We're a few episodes into this YouTube channel now, so if you want me to change things, if you want me to tweak things, like, please tell me that, because I want to create something that you want to watch. So comment down below, tell your friends about it, and I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.